mindfulness really teaches us to actually accept and contact those emotions.
In fact, when I saw my first therapist ever, I'll never forget the first piece of advice I got was to allow at least 5 minutes to do some mindfulness before the session starts.
We have some data that suggests that mindfulness is positively related to self-access. So people who are more mindful, they have better access to their inner self and all these feelings and emotions and so on.
Welcome to the Mental Wellbeing College, where we take a deep dive into the wonderful world of mental wellbeing. Each episode, we take a journey through the evidence with a global subject expert to extract the applicable strategies so you can take steps to improving your mental wellbeing. Hello everyone, and welcome to today's Mindfulness Masterclass. Over the past 12 months, we've had the absolute privilege of being able to speak to some of the world's experts, psychologists, and researchers on all things mental well-being. And one of the real common themes that keeps popping up is the value of mindfulness in helping with emotion regulation, navigating times of mental difficulty, and also helping you connect with your own values in times of normalcy to help you achieve and thrive in your own goals, striving. So I thought this would be really useful to put together this mindfulness masterclass, which is based around 4 key questions. Number 1, what is mindfulness? Number 2, what are some of the benefits of mindfulness in goal setting, goal striving, mental health, and with navigating some mental illnesses? Number 3, what are some of the practices that you can implement beyond just sitting meditation to get the benefits out of mindfulness? And number 4, how can you make mindfulness stick and make it a habit? Mindfulness is also something that I've seen be really valuable to so many clients in therapy. And I've had the privilege of seeing some clients take it away, implement it, and helping them navigate some difficult times in their own life. Now, obviously, you need to decide what is right for you. And for some people, that is going to be seeking professional support. So please do seek that out if you need to. And this is not meant to replace one-on-one therapy for those who need it. However, in saying that, mindfulness is a really accessible tool that many people can use in just a few minutes to change their mood and change their experience. And I'm hoping that for those of you that need another tool, and for those of you who the evidence that we talk about really resonates with, that you feel like you're able to walk away from this episode thinking, yeah, this is something I can implement, and that you then see the fruits of your labor and the benefits of mindfulness in your own life. So if this episode does bring you value, I would be super grateful if you were to hit subscribe or follow, as this is how we continue to grow the show. The mission with this show really is to provide a free, accessible resource for people the world over who need something to help them support them in times of mental distress, but also for those not in mental distress and who are wanting to flourish and have a higher level of mental well-being, and just have a bit of a resource to help them take actionable steps in their own life, to have this podcast as a resource to do that. So you subscribing, following, or sharing this episode really does help us to hit that mission and help people the world over. Now, this episode is mostly video, so feel free to head over to YouTube or watch it on your phone on Spotify, but there are some audio only parts, as again, this is a mixtape of 5 previous episodes, one of which is an audio only episode. But I hope it does bring you value. Next week, we are back to our usual discussions with guests. We have Dr. Margaret McLafferty joining us to discuss all things childhood adversity and university student mental health. But for now, sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of Mindfulness Masterclass with 5 different full and assistant professors in psychology. Mindfulness is not sitting under a lotus tree cross-legged like a Buddha, but rather it's a way of life and being throughout each and every day. So are you able to elaborate on that and kind of give us a bit of an overview as to what mindfulness is?
I mean, right, we have this image of the Buddha sitting under, the Bodhi tree or under a blooming lotus or something like this. But even if we look at the historic Buddha, the Buddha didn't stay sitting under the Bodhi tree, and in fact was deeply engaged in the world and had a whole entourage of monks and nuns and lay people, and was very involved in life after his awakening. So I think even, in the classical Buddhist world, we see that the Buddha was very involved. And I think, of course, mindfulness practice is intended to help us show up in our lives in a deeper and kinder way, hopefully. So I like John's definition of mindfulness as a way of paying attention that's on purpose in the present moment and without judgment. And some of the mindfulness teaching I get to do at the University of Wisconsin, I love to come up with synonyms for that term non-judgment. And a few that I really love and I think students have resonated with are words like kindness or curiosity. I really love curiosity as a word to describe that way of orienting, acceptance, openness, that kind of quality.
I was reading a 2018, I think, meta-analysis by yourself and colleagues, and I'm wondering if you're able to tell us a little bit about these MBIs and the effectiveness of them compared to other evidence-based therapies for mental illnesses.
That study is a few years old. There have been even more trials since then, and there actually was another meta-analysis that came out just this month or last month that compared mindfulness-based interventions. I think it was mindfulness-based cognitive therapy to cognitive behavioral therapy. And what they essentially found in that study, which is the same thing that we found in our meta-analysis, is that when these two, what we describe in the psychotherapy world as bona fide interventions that are intended to be therapeutic, that have real therapeutic ingredients and cogent rationales for how they work, that these two families of therapy perform almost indistinguishably, and they're almost identical when compared head to head. And that's actually something that we saw looking at the whole MBI literature, when a wide variety of MBIs, not just mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, but the variety of MBIs that are being tested out there, when they're compared head to head with other evidence-based treatments like CBT or antidepressants for that matter, that they perform almost identically well.
What does the evidence say in terms of conditions and disorders that MBIs are more effective for?
In the field where we see the most effectiveness so far, I would tell you stress, anxiety, depression. And maybe stress, anxiety even is higher on the scale. Because again, they had targeted stress at the beginning. And MBSR, which is mindfulness-based stress reduction, is among the most used internationally today as MBR. There are other MBRs, there are plenty, but MBSR is the most known one internationally. So, and MBSR, the first target is stress. So it's not surprising that we see stress being the first variable that have been shown in most of these studies, in not majority, have been impacted positively, meaning reducing stress following an MBSR. Then anxiety, which is second related to stress. Then we see depression in many of these MBRs, specifically mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, which is a combination of mindfulness and CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy. So mindfulness-based cognitive therapy have been shown to have impact on depression, for example, or recurrent depression. Like people have been depressed many times.
It seems as though you found at least preliminary evidence supporting the use of MBIs for suicidal ideation in some cases based on your meta-analysis.
And yes, we find that, again, MBIs had positive impact. And we think that this comes with kind acceptance. Most of that comes not from a vacuum. It's acceptance of what's going on inside. Because some of the suicide ideation will come, I cannot take it anymore. It's too painful. So the best way is to escape. If I'm able to accept suffering and accept pain as it is, my suicide ideation will diminish. Even though it's my condition, it didn't change it. Whatever is there is there. But if I'm able to deal with it, very likely, my suicide results will diminish.
For a lot of people, and again, suicide is such a nuanced, and there are so many varied reasons as to why some people might take that option. But for a lot of people, we hear that it's a way out of the pain, it's a way to cope with the pain, but then MBIs kind of helps increase your ability to regulate yourself and to deal with those big emotions.
There is no one like by default wants to die as a kind wanting to die or do not want to live. but there is suffering in life, there's pain. And that's true. And it's a fact. We cannot ignore pain in life. So, and if pain become in a level that is not anymore tolerable, it's too hard to handle. It's almost normal to think of suicide. So MBIs does do help, especially in mindfulness practice, in terms of being able to be with that pain. Again, without even changing the pain, but just being able to be with it. And we know from the fact, even physical pain, and there are studies on physical pain, if you are able to attend physical pain, let's say you have a knee pain, or a back pain, or a hip pain, or headache, if you are able to be with it without judging, without reacting to it, without getting annoyed, angry at it, it won't change the pain, but it will change the perception of pain. You feel less in pain suddenly. Does not mean it's really you don't have any more migraine or don't have any more knee pain or hip pain or back pain, but suddenly because of accepting of these sensations that you don't want to have them. Nobody wants to have pain. Pain become more acceptable. And the same of emotional pain or psychological suffering. If you are able to be with it, it diminishes.
I feel like I myself am losing the ability to contact and accept difficult and negative emotions. Like in today's society, it's so easy to just distract myself, to pick up my phone, to check social media, to check emails as a distraction mindlessly when I have a negative emotion, rather than actually like confronting that and dealing with that, head on. And it's something that I observe broadly on a societal level, that it's so easy to numb our pain now, whether that's with external things, drugs, alcohol, or whether that's more subliminally, like for me, like I said, with, just checking your phone or your social media when you get these, negative thoughts or, negative emotions just pop up. Whereas it seems like mindfulness really teaches us to actually accept and contact those emotions.
Yeah, exactly. I totally agree that there is kind of a risk of the because of the existence of ways to escape pain. That I mean, always we had ways. I think now there's more ways beyond what is obvious, as you mentioned, drugs, alcohol, substances, which have been around since a long time. But now we have subtle things that seems not that harmful, like social media, your Facebook, your YouTube, your Instagram, TikTok, then videos and uh, porn many are using. So all these distractions, all these ways to escape pains that seem not harmful. You don't need to go too much spend money or put yourself in danger because they seem they are very accessible. Everyone has a phone, so it's so accessible. But unfortunately, they are harmful, especially if they are used always to escape.
Well, you're absolutely right. And listeners might be sitting there like, awareness sounds great. How do I develop that? So, one of the things that our team has focused on for years now is actually using mindfulness techniques. So, actually, in our alliance focused training supervision sessions, we will actually start every session with some mindfulness. And the goal of this, again, being to increase the awareness of what is happening for us as therapists in the moment. And this is something that's always stuck with me. In fact, when I saw my first therapist ever, I'll never forget the first piece of advice I got was to allow at least 5 minutes to do some mindfulness before the session starts. And that was in part to ground the nervous energy I had of seeing a patient for the very first time, but also to make sure that I was connected with myself while also trying to connect with someone else. That sort of is a pathway to building this self-awareness that I keep coming back to.
Hello everyone, just a quick break from today's Mindfulness Masterclass just to ask for a small but really meaningful to me favor. If any of the episodes of the Mental Wellbeing College have brought you value, I would be super grateful if you were to hit subscribe or follow, as this is how we continue to grow the show and reach more and more people around the world who may be in need of a free and accessible resource, an evidence-based resource to help them with their mental well-being. Subscribing and following really helps us grow the show and helps us continue to connect with some of the experts in mental well-being to provide this information to people free and the world over. Thanks so much for tuning in. It really means a lot that you do listen. I hope you take a lot away from today's masterclass, and now we'll return back to the episode. Is there an art to introspection? Do you have ways in which you go about introspecting?
Techniques I have for that. So one I've already mentioned, I think you do need to change your environment so that it's got fewer distractions in it. So small things like I don't charge my phone next to me in the bedroom. I charge my phone out in the living room so that when I wake up in the morning, it's not there. I also sleep Japanese style on the floor on tatami mats and futons. So I have a kind of morning ritual where I put those away and then I do like a little 10-minute yoga thing. And I generally try and like wake up before I go to any screens. I find it really useful if I'm on a bus or a train or something like that to like not distract myself. So don't look at your phone, just like make sure you're comfortable being bored. And I think one of the most telltale signs that you're not going to be capable of introspecting is if you get bored easily. And I don't mean like, oh, what am I going to do with my day? I don't have anything to do with my day. That's big boredom. That's fine. I think if you've got big boredom, then introspect on what you might want to do with yourself. I'm talking about little boredom, like that I need constant dopamine hits. So I need to go onto Twitter or whatever. If you discover that you're like that, I think you need to take drastic action. And I'm a bit like that. So yeah, I've got friends who have like no screen time after 8 p.m. kind of rules, which I think is quite good. So I try not to, sometimes I have to work quite late, but it's kind of like 9 o'clock, I've shut down stuff, try to anyway. And then I'll like have a wind down. Maybe I'll read a bit, like a comic book or something, but just like no blue light, have a shower. Yeah, don't blue light yourself before bed, I think is very helpful. A lot of people find that their brain really works really fast when they're running. So I think if you have an exercise that helps you to focus in on what's going on in your head and do that. I kind of have the opposite. Like when I'm rock climbing, I have no thoughts. I get really high flow from rock climbing because you have to concentrate so hard on what you're doing. So I find that a really good reset. I tend to work till 4, then I'm brain dead, go climbing. And then when I come out of climbing at like 6 o'clock, I'm sort of refreshed, but I also haven't crammed my brain with other junk because I haven't had music in when I'm climbing. I don't talk to people. I don't read. I don't do anything. I just climb and stretch. And then I can often do some good introspection at that time, like while I cook dinner or something like that. So yeah, I think it's mostly about being comfortable with boredom. So being comfortable with having an empty head and just letting stuff flow into there. One thing I do on that is probably twice a year, I go on like a 5-day hike and don't take anything with me. So don't take a book, don't take a phone, nothing. So you're just like bored. There's nothing to do except like look at stuff. And I find that usually by about the 4th day, I'm like really bored. It's starting to become like quite annoying. I've sort of run out of thoughts because your brain will just chew on stuff that's in there. And then by the 5th day, now you're kind of like empty-headed and then you can get new stuff. So some people find silent meditation retreats really useful for this same reason. I find that a little bit too excruciating, particularly because there's people around at silent meditation retreats. So I just take myself off hiking.
Yeah, and mindfulness-based practice has helped me to kind of just pause in between reactions to stimulate my environment. Like when I'm driving, for example, I find I'm less reactive when I've been consistent for, a period of months with the mindfulness, daily mindfulness practice. But what does it look like in your life?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, one of the ways, so on retreat, one of the things I've noticed, maybe this is not as sciencey as maybe you wanted, Indy, but just sharing from my experience. I mean, one of the habits that I've noticed in my mind is a thread of competitiveness and comparison and sort of judging my practice in a way, which I know is a common experience for lots of us. So just noticing that habit in the context of retreat, which in many ways is this sort of like pristine environment with relatively few things for the mind to get worked up on or by, as versus daily life. So seeing it come up in that context is really, I feel like, been telling that this is a deep habit, and really kind of seeing the process, how it unfolds and all the pain associated with it, and then coming back to the world. So I'm a professor, and academia is very competitive and has plenty of opportunities for those same sorts of habits of mind to come up. So being able to recognize it in retreat, and then when it's happening outside of retreat, just to notice that that's what the mind's doing, that it's comparing, or that it's judging, or that it's jealous, or that it's wanting. And not even necessarily that something needs to be done about that in a particular moment, beyond just seeing that that's what's happening, and really being with that experience, being with the unpleasantness of that experience, if that's what's happening, and as much as possible, not letting the experience be reified as this is me or this is mine, has been really helpful to let that pass through, knowing that it will change, knowing that it's a habit of mind, that it doesn't belong to me in a sense, has been really helpful for living in an environment which I think not always the most wholesome effects on my mind stream. So
talk a little bit about the utility of mindfulness, perhaps in the moment when we're feeling heightened and distressed, and when our sympathetic nervous system is particularly online. And I've been thinking of a few examples when my heart rate's pumping, and sweating palms. And is there utility for mindfulness in that very specific moment to help us step back from and out of that particular kind of physical state? I referred earlier to the driving example, and that's something that has helped me. But are there particular strategies that people can actually use in the moment, or is it more of a building the mindfulness in the background consistently for months on end, and then that will kind of play out when you have these moments of heightenedness?
Yeah, it's a wonderful question. And my guess is that that's one that varies across people and varies within people across time, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know in my own experience, mindfulness can be really helpful to notice what's happening, or notice, that I'm driving and I'm getting grumpy with my fellow drivers. I know in my own experience, mindfulness can be a great way to be aware of and be accepting as much as one's able of what's happening. But there's lots of different mental strategies that people can use. I mean, there can be skillful times to engage in distraction. For example, I know I asked Sharon Salzberg at one point about recommendations for public speaking, for feeling less anxious when public speaking. And she said that something that had been really helpful for her was doing loving kindness practice, and intentionally cultivating feelings of warmth and kindness towards oneself and other. And that can transform that sort of evaluative stress of public speaking, and probably road rage for that matter, where we are feeling not loving kindness towards our fellow passengers. I think a lot of this stuff, I mean, the amazing thing at this particular historical moment is there are beautiful, deep contemplative traditions that are in, deep dialogue with the West. And there's a lot of different strategies that people have access to now. And I think it's really exciting. And it's really, I think, an invitation to do some exploring.
Anything can make you happy. You just need to know what makes you happy and act accordingly. But of course, that's easily said, right? Knowing yourself is sometimes hard, and society suggests certain things sometimes, how you should be, and so on. And so it's not so easy always to figure that out, or that your family pushes you, and so on. So that's why we think that mindfulness can help you in that regard, to be more aware and attentive to your basically bodily reactions, because your body actually tells you what you like. It's just often we don't listen to our body because we think we should do something instead of just listening what actually happens to us. And there's a one very smart exercise from the motive researcher Oliver Schultheis. It's a goal imagination exercise. So if you think you want to do the PhD in psychology, think about all the tasks that entails, because doing a PhD in psychology is quite a complex task. Like, you need to know about psychology, you have to read a lot, you need to know about statistics, you need to know how to do experiments or data collection, you need to write, and so on and so on. And naturally, not all of these tasks, you don't like them all similarly well, because that's just how we are. We like different things better. But when you try to imagine imagine doing these tasks, not the result of these tasks, but imagine executing these tasks. For example, sitting on your computer writing on an article. How do you feel about that? Do you have a feeling at all? Do you have a negative feeling, or do you feel good about it? If you have a good feeling, that probably applies to your implicit motives. If you have no feeling, well, probably not. And if you have a negative feeling, well, there might be a fear component in that. So, and then you can do that with all of these subtasks for the bigger thing. And then, you look at the bottom line, and if at the end of the day, all these tasks together, there's kind of, there's still more positive tasks than tasks that you have like absolutely no feeling or an icky feeling about it, then it's for you. Otherwise, it's probably not for you. So that's a way. And then if you're more mindful, well, you're more aware of these. It's easier for you to detect those feelings that you have that manifest themselves in the body.
It sounds like mindfulness, introspection, reflecting on how you feel affectively when you're doing certain tasks is a strategy to become more aware of those implicit motives.
And accepting it. That not this idea, I shouldn't be sad. Well, you can be sad. If you're sad, you're sad. That's okay. And it's just it's a feeling, and it will pass. But right now you're sad, and it's okay to be sad. That comes with it too. Because if you allow yourself to have the feeling you're having, well, you can recognize it more easily, right? Because if you push it away, well, you don't have so much access to that. And this is actually a thing. Like, it's called self-access. And how do you get self-access? And we think that we have some data that suggests that mindfulness is positively related to self-access. So people who are more mindful, they have better access to their inner self and all these feelings and emotions and so on.
Do you have advice as to how individuals can establish and maintain a consistent mindfulness practice? Even for someone like myself, I've struggled over the years to really establish a consistent practice.
Yeah.
And it's something that I see talking to a lot of friends, and the understanding of the benefits, but the struggle to kind of to implement that consistency with mindfulness. So how did you go about doing it, and what advice could you share for people who are looking to do the same?
No, I love that question, Indy. And I'm super fascinated by that, because I think there are lots of health behaviors. I mean, we could think of exercise or healthy diet, that we know, things that we know are good for us, but we don't always do. And I just think that's such a fascinating part of human behavior. I mean, a couple thoughts. One, advice that I've heard Richie Davidson, the director of the Center for Healthy Minds, where I work, talk about mindfulness as mental hygiene. And that, some hundreds of years ago, nobody was brushing their teeth. And now most people brush their teeth, often twice a day, and are spending a couple minutes because we've learned as a culture that that's something that's worth doing for our health. And really, I hear that as making the case for even just small amounts of practice, right? You brush your teeth maybe for 2 minutes in the morning, 2 minutes in the evening. Could we spend a minute, being with the body, being with the breath, doing some loving kindness, doing something to sort of encourage some mental hygiene? So I think that can be a way that we don't have to think, I have to sit 45 minutes a day in the morning and 45 in the evening to really be developing a meditation practice. I mean, in my own experience, from literally the very first time I tried meditation, I found it really helpful and really compelling. And not that it wasn't easy, not that it wasn't hard. It actually was really challenging to be with my internal experience. And when I started practicing, I was having a lot of painful internal experiences. So it wasn't easy, but I could tell even from the first few times practicing that it was helping me work with that experience. And it was, in a way, kind of taking the edge off some of the unpleasantness of those experiences. So I think for me, there's this kind of negative reinforcement where something unpleasant is stopping during the practice or as a result of the practice. And I think that's been I've been really grateful actually for that as something that's helped me stay engaged with practice. So I would say if people are starting, I mean, hopefully there's some sense either of something unpleasant that maybe softens a little bit or loosens a little bit, and also exploring if there's some part of the experience that is pleasant, that there is some relaxing or easeful or quiet or peaceful quality that, again, our culture doesn't encourage us to look for that or to value that. But those experiences can be really beautiful. And we have that capacity as human beings. I mean, we have a mind that can experience deep, profound states of calm and quiet and stillness and joy with nothing from the outside. I mean, that's what's so amazing about the human mind. Not that it doesn't take a lot of work and that it's kind of immediately accessible to all of us, but maybe some faith in a way that that capacity is part of our birthright as human beings. And I think to varying degrees that's true.
And that was the Mindfulness Masterclass. I hope you took a lot away from this masterclass and that importantly, you feel like you not just learned some cool information, but you feel like hopefully there's things that you can implement and actions you can take that are going to readily improve your mental well-being if you feel like you need to. So that was the masterclass, and next week we are returning to our guest style discussions with Dr. Margaret McLafferty on all things childhood adversity and university student mental health. That's going to be a really interesting episode, so make sure you stay tuned for that one. And if you're into learning about some cool and funky experiments, make sure you head over to our YouTube Shorts channel as well, as we post those Monday to Friday on cool experiments that might bring and provoke some different thoughts and ways of thinking about your own mental well-being. Thanks for tuning in, everyone, and we'll see you next week.